Well, good morning. Yeah, I've already been awake 2 hours and out of bed about an hour. Anyway, um, it's 3:33 and it's Friday morning. This is the video for the 22nd of November, and the title is My Court Appearance Report in More Detail. I got to come home on my own. I did not go to jail. I was not assaulted. I was intimidated. I signed everything UCC 1-308 under duress. Living in the matrix to me is under duress. It is stressful and sometimes terrifying. I do not have the support of my local community, which results in my feelings of isolation as I battle to get people to see the importance of standing together. My friends do not do that. Therefore, my court appearance, which was not about my home, but about driving on a suspended license and resisting arrest without violence, was a failure in some respects. I played their game, which I will continue to do until we have real courts of common law set up that have community backing. Until then, I am a slave, just like everyone else on the prison planet, on this prison planet. Let me just go ahead and tell my experience. First of all, my son went with me. My friend Denise tried to get the time off to go with me. She wanted to go with me, but she's in special training and her employer simply would not let her have the afternoon off as she had requested. So she apologetically said, I can't go with you, Ron. I do have, I want you to say, I say that because I want you to see that I do have some friends that would like to support me locally. And I do understand that not everyone can do that. There are people that have jobs and other responsibilities. But there are also people that are like me, have a lot more free time and can choose to spend that time however they want. Friends that aren't even as busy as I am. Anyway, my son went with me, and I told him, you know, I gave him the keys to my car. I gave him my wallet. I only had one thing in my pocket, and that was my driver's license. It's the only thing I had on me. Um, so that if they tried to arrest me and put me in jail, at least my car would not be impounded and my son could take it home, and they couldn't steal anything from me in jail like they did the last time. I had what, $44 on me the last time, and they stole. Wait a minute, I had $69, and they stole 25 of it, leaving me with $44. They just stole $25 out of my wallet. Didn't give it back. They charged me that for registering me in the jail, basically as a service fee. But it's theft. Anyway, I didn't know what they were going to do. Some people had suggested that they were going to bring up additional charges on me and arrest me, and I had no clue what was going to happen or even how I would handle it. And so I needed to have someone with me, and I'm glad my son was able to go in case, in the worst case scenario, that they would pull some kind of craziness on me. Anyway, we got to court uh, about half an hour before we were scheduled for the court to open. My son had to smoke 2 quick cigarettes before we actually went inside. And when we went and sat inside, the place was packed. In fact, there were people standing that were asked to leave because all the chairs were taken, and there's no standing or sitting on the floor allowed in the courtroom. That's just the way it is. And before the judge even came out, the bailiff announced some of the rules and emphasized the importance of keeping the rules and playing the game. Because if you don't, you will be charged with contempt of court, and then it will not, and then it will get pretty ugly for you. I believe that's the phrase that he used. It will get ugly for you. So there was an intimidation threat given to the entire courtroom. One person who called yesterday to find out how I made out, when I said that, said, was that directed towards you? You know, it was directed toward everybody. I was one of the everybody's that was in the courtroom. Anyway, of course, they always take the people that have attorneys representing them first. And I was observing and paying close attention as to how these things were being handled. And there were numerous people, actually, that the charge was driving on a suspended license. And if they had reinstated their license and had it present, the fine was waived and they were assessed only costs of court. And that was standard. Okay, that's the way they were doing it in every instance. The other thing that I observed is those who asked for a trial by jury, at least a couple of them were told, I will require that you get an attorney. We will provide one if you cannot do it on your own, but you must have an attorney. That was another observation that I made. And I'm observing, and as I said to my son, and as I said prior, I didn't know for sure what exactly I was going to do, because my objective is to get this thing over with. It's not to beat the system. I cannot stand alone and beat the system, not without community support, not without feeling like I have a bunch of people behind me that are willing to stand with me and stand up for me. I'm sorry. I'm not willing to be a martyr and put myself in harm's way for a principle, and that only involves money and stupid rules. It's not worth that risk to me. Now, those of you that are willing to go to jail for these things, good on you. Good on you, mate, as they would say in Australia down under. Good on you, mate. You're willing to stand up and you're willing to go to jail. You're willing to get beat up. Good on you, mate. I'm not willing to pay that price. Now, if it was for my home, I made the distinction that this was not about my home. I will let them kill me in defense of my home. My home is my home. And they have no lawful right, the courts have no lawful right to take this home from me. Everything the bank and the courts are doing in regard to my home is fraud. Not that the other stuff isn't fraud, but what I'm saying is, what are you willing to stand up and die for? Well, I'm willing to stand up and die for my home. I'm not willing to stand up and die over driver's licenses and money and fines. I'm not willing to do that. Anyway, over half the people, I would say, in the courtroom. Now, I don't know how many were there on their own case and how many had somebody with them, like I had my son with me. I do know that those that were there to see people that were in custody were told to leave the courtroom, which made a few more seats vacant. Because if somebody was in custody, this is not a visiting. This is not a place to visit. You visit in the jail. And so there were a number of people, in fact, one or two people in my row that I was sitting in, that got up and left when that was announced, and that you can't be here just to see somebody, one of your family members or somebody that's incarcerated. That's part of the prison population, so to speak, that's actually in the jail. So anyway, it came time for them to start calling the cases of the people that had the public defender. The problem is there were so many people that had a public defender, that the public defender was outside the courtroom. That there were two public defenders, and they were outside the courtroom conferring with their clients because they were not allowed to have conversations in the courtroom. And so when they started calling people, the attorneys weren't there to go up with them and stand with them, so they had to delay all of those cases. So there were still a lot of people in the courtroom when the judge asked, "Is there anyone here representing themselves?" And I raised my hand, and so did a few other people. There weren't a lot. I didn't do a head count or anything like that, because he recognized me first and called me up, and I went up there, and he said, "What's your name?" Now, some people are going to get pissed off here. I says, "Well, my family name is Van Dyke." He said, "What's your first name?" And I said, "Well, people call me Ron." And he said, "So your name is Ron Van Dyke?" "Well, that's what people call me." The lady who was sitting next to the clerk handed the judge my file. Now, my file has in it all about the name. I mean, it has documents, and my status and everything has been filed in the court and in Superior Court. I have the record that they have those files. Those papers, I have proof of delivery. Very important, because when common law courts come up, I can bring charges against them for all the things that they do that are not under common law, that are actually breaking the law. So I can bring charges against this judge and against others that violated my rights, even in regard to the name. But it takes a real court to handle things like that. And folks, in admiralty courts, they are not real courts. They are administrative centers. They are banks. They are privately run corporations. They are not courts, and judges do not sit on them. They call themselves judges, but they are administrators, and they are actors. It's a game. The Matrix is a game. So anyway, he said, well, he read the charges that were against me, and what do you want to do? And I says, well, on the driving on a suspended license, I said, I held up my license. I said, this was renewed days after the event took place, meaning the arrest. And I had it with me even the last time I was in here. And he had me hand that and I said, I want to get this over with today. And I handed it to the bailiff as I was instructed, and the bailiff went and checked it and came back and said, it's valid. It's been reinstated. And that was all a matter of paying a fine that I had refused to pay previously, and paying the penalty for allowing it to be lapsed in the first place. And I'm not even going to go into the detail on that one. And he says, well, what do you want to do on the resisting arrest? I said, set a trial date, because he was allowing a jury trial. Now, when I went previously, they didn't allow jury trials. I mean, the judge worked tirelessly to get me to finally agree to a non-jury trial, and then they threw a curve by bringing in a different prosecutor, because they had agreed to throw out the charge. The previous prosecutor had agreed to throw out the charge on driving without a license. And the only thing that was left was going to be the resisting arrest, which they ended up dropping. Anyway, I took a trial date for July 15th. And then my son and I are ready to leave. It's about 3:30 in the afternoon at this time. And I said, look, the paperwork, oh, one other thing. All three of the bailiffs made positive comments to me. The one man who fingerprinted me, yes, you have to get fingerprinted in this thing, apologized to me, and he said, please don't take it personal, we're just doing our job. And one of the other officers, or bailiffs rather, said, it went a lot better for you this time than the last time, good luck to you. So, I mean, the attitude was at least congenial among the bailiffs. And the instructions, the costs of court were $331, which blew me away. I was thinking $50, $100 cost of court maybe. $331, and they did give me a breakdown. I don't have it. Didn't memorize it. But anyway, you can pay that. You can set up a payment plan with the clerk of court. It has to be done in person within 30 days. And you have 30 days to appeal any decision that's made. So I could still file an appeal, but you file an appeal with these courts. They are not law courts. They are not courts of law. That's why I say you need a common law court, which is a court of law, or what do you call it? The other kind of court, an equity court, a court of equity. These are not those. You don't have rights in these courts. They pretend they give you rights, and they allowed a jury trial. Anyway, I went to the clerk of court right on the spot. I says, I'm not going to drive back down here in the next month to set up a payment plan, and I'm not going to give them the money all at once. So I set up the payment plan. It cost $25 administration fee on top of the $331, and I'm allowed to pay $30 a month on the 19th of each month through October 19th, 2015, with the final payment of $1 due on November 19th, 2015. Then my son and I went out and got a bite to eat, and we got home 20 after 5, somewhere around there. I don't know the exact time. So it was a long afternoon. It would have been much longer if it wasn't for all of the attorneys, for the public defenders not being available to stand with their clients. Otherwise, I would have been one of the last ones to go. But because of the circumstances, we got out of there much earlier than we would have otherwise. Anyway, that's the rest of the story in more detail as to what happened in my court appearance. And I thank you for listening. Namaste.